My name is Maria. Life was plodding along the same old routine until one rainy Tuesday changed everything. I was holed up in a cozy corner of Joe's cafe, nursing a hot coffee and trying to shake off the chill. The rain was relentless, and I hoped it would wash away the funk I was in after a tough critique in my fashion design class. The bell above the cafe door jangled, and in came this guy, soaked from head to toe. He looked around, a bit lost, then chose the table right next to mine. There was something about him that was hard to ignore, even though I usually kept to myself. He caught me staring, and instead of looking away, he grinned. "Rough day, huh? Mind if I sit here?" "Go ahead, it's free," I said, trying not to sound too interested. He pulled out a chair, sat down with a sigh, and extended his hand. "I'm James. And you are?" "Maria." I shook his hand, noting his firm grip. "So, Maria, always this quiet in here?" he asked, looking around the nearly empty cafe. "Usually. Keeps the nosy folks at bay," I replied, raising an eyebrow. He chuckled. "Well, you could do worse. But seriously, what brings you here on a day like this?" "Just hiding from the rain and some critiquing eyes. I'm a dressmaker, or at least I'm trying to be one. Had a tough day at fashion school." "A dressmaker, huh? That's awesome. I'm in sales. Totally different world. But hey, we've all got our battles, right?" "Right," I nodded. His easy demeanor was a welcome change from the usual stress I faced. We ordered another round of coffee, and the conversation flowed as easily as the rain outside. We talked about everything from our jobs to our dreams. James wanted to make it big in sales, always chasing the next big deal. "What about you, Maria? What's your big dream?" he asked, leaning in a bit. "To run my own atelier. I want to design clothes that don't just fit the body, but fit the soul too." "Sounds cheesy, huh?" "Not at all. You'll get there. And hey, if you ever need a brutally honest opinion on your designs, give me a shout. I'm known for my brutal honesty." As the rain tapered off, we realized we'd spent hours talking. "Guess it's time to face the real world again," James said reluctantly. "Yeah, guess so. Thanks for the company, James. It was surprisingly nice." "Same here, Maria. Here's my number. Text me about those designs, or if you just want to escape another critique session," he said, scribbling on a napkin. James and we didn't waste any time. We knew we had something special, and before a year had ticked by, we were planning a wedding. It was nothing fancy, just close friends and family in a little chapel downtown. After we got married, things started moving even faster. We found a small apartment, big enough for two, and soon enough, it needed to be big enough for three. Lily came along, and suddenly my dreams of running my own atelier didn't seem so distant. "James, can you believe we're doing this? A family, my atelier, it's all happening," I said to him one night as we sat surrounded by sketches and fabric samples. James was sprawled on the sofa, papers scattered around him, looking every bit the part of a tired sales manager. "It's a lot, Maria. But hey, we're making it happen, right? Just gotta keep pushing." Opening the atelier wasn't smooth sailing. Money was tight, and James's income was hit or miss, depending on the month. But I was determined. I started taking custom orders, sewing late into the night while James would try and pick up extra shifts. It was a grind, but a shared one. "Hey, babe, these electric bills are killing us. Maybe cut back on the late nights?" James would say, half joking, but knowing full well the lights were on for a reason. I'd shoot back, a bit sharper than intended. "Sure, and maybe you could stop buying those fancy suits?" James would raise an eyebrow, then grin. Ouch. Low blow. But fair enough. We both gotta make some sacrifices, huh? Exactly. If we tighten up now, think of where we could be in a few years, I'd respond, softening. I knew he was trying, but so was I, hard. As the atelier began to gain a bit of traction, my relationship with James saw more strain. We were both hustling, but our ideas of hustle looked pretty different. James loved his designer labels, a habit that didn't die with marriage or fatherhood. It was one of those constant nags at the back of my mind, gnawing away. You buying another watch? Really, James? I'd snap after seeing a new box on our dresser. It's not a big deal, Maria. It was on sale. He'd defend himself, his tone defensive. A sale? We need a new sewing machine. That's what we need on sale, I'd retort, frustration bubbling over. These spats became more frequent. They said money problems could break a marriage, and now I understood why. But every time I looked at Lily or walked into my atelier, I felt the fight in me burn brighter. I wasn't just building a business, I was building a future, our daughter's future. As the months rolled by, the atelier started to become what I had dreamed. Orders were coming in, clients were happy, and my little corner of the world was thriving. Life at the atelier was booming, but at home, things were starting to fray around the edges. Lily was growing up fast, already a teenager with her own ideas and attitudes about the world. She wasn't the little girl who used to play with fabric scraps on the floor of my studio anymore. Now, she seemed more interested in her phone and what her friends were doing. One evening, I overheard her talking on the phone. My mom? Yeah, she's just a dressmaker. It's kinda old-fashioned, you know? Not really cool. Hearing her say that stung more than I wanted to admit. The next day, I tried to talk to her about it. Lily, I heard you talking about my job last night. Does it really embarrass you that I'm a dressmaker? She shrugged, avoiding my eyes. It's just, all my friends' parents have normal jobs, and it's not cool, Mom. Normal jobs? Lily, what I do is a profession. It's how we manage to live comfortably. Don't you think that's important? I was trying to keep my voice even, but it was hard not to feel hurt. Whatever, Mom. It's just how I feel. She walked away, her words hanging heavy between us. James's spending habits didn't help matters. Every month, there seemed to be new charges for clothes or gadgets he didn't need. James, we talked about this. We need to save, not spend. Especially on things we don't need. Come on, Maria, I work hard. I should be able to enjoy the fruits of my labor. It's not like I'm blowing through our savings. He brushed off my concerns with a wave of his hand. But it's not just about you, or even us. It's about Lily, about her future. We need to be thinking long-term. My voice was rising, frustration boiling over. All right, I get it. I'll cut back. James's reply was quick, an attempt to end the conversation more than a promise to change. Then there were the moments with Lily that felt like trying to talk to a stranger. Lily, you used to love coming to the atelier. Don't you want to help me out anymore? I asked her one Saturday morning, hoping to reconnect. Mom, that was when I was a kid. I'm not interested in that stuff anymore. She barely looked up from her phone. I sighed, feeling the rejection. You know, I built all this for us, for our family. I thought you'd be proud. Mom, it's just not my thing, okay? Her tone was dismissive, and it felt like a door slamming shut. One day, scrolling through Lily's phone while she was doing homework, I stumbled across a photo that made me pause. It was Lily and an unfamiliar young woman, both smiling at the camera. Lily, who's this with you in the picture? She glanced over, her expression shifting to discomfort. Oh, that's just my friend's mom. But it didn't stop there. Lily started spending more time with James, often out of the house. Meanwhile, I buried myself in work, barely seeing them. I noticed more photos popping up on social media, Lily, James, and the same woman at various events and beautiful places. It became a pattern, this mysterious woman always there, smiling alongside my family while I was left out, sewing away into the night. Coming home that night felt different. The house was too quiet, and a sinking feeling hit me as soon as I turned the key in the lock. I called out, expecting to hear James or Lily, but there was no response. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as I stepped further inside. The living room light was on. I rounded the corner and stopped dead in my tracks. There, on our sofa, sat James and a woman, the same woman from the pictures. "James, what is this? What's going on?" My voice came out sharper and louder than I intended. James didn't even have the decency to stand up. He just looked at me, cold and distant. "Maria, this is Helen. She's moving in. We need you to move out." The words were so blunt, so brutally delivered, they nearly knocked the wind out of me. "Move out? This is my home, James. You're asking me to leave my own house?" Helen smirked, crossing her legs and looking around like she owned the place. "Well, it seems like James made his choice, honey. Best you make this easy on everyone and just leave." "Shut up," I snapped, my focus shifting angrily between her and James. "I'm not talking to you. James, how could you do this to us? To your family?" James stood up finally, his expression one of annoyance rather than remorse. "It's done, Maria. I'm done. We're done. Helen is here now, and that's just how it's going to be." I felt dizzy, the room spinning as their words echoed in my head. "And Lily? Does she know about this? Does our daughter know that her father is kicking us out for her?" James shrugged, a cruel indifference settling over his features. "Lily is fine with it. She likes Helen. She understands things you never did. She doesn't want to see you anymore." That hit harder than anything. My own daughter? Siding with this betrayal? I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking, and dialed Lily's number. "Lily, is it true? You really don't want to see me anymore?" There was a pause on the other end, then Lily's voice, cold and distant. "Yeah, Mom, it's true. Helen's cool, you know? She gets fashion, she's fun. Not like you, always stuck with your sewing and clients. You're just old-fashioned." Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened to her words. All those nights I stayed up working, all the sacrifices, it was all for her, for our family. And this was how she saw me? I hung up, my heart shattered into pieces. Helen looked pleased, her confidence swelling as she demonstratively stroked James's back, her smile haughty. I couldn't stand to be in that house another minute. I silently packed up the necessary things, my movements robotic. As I walked out the door, the sobs I had been holding back broke free. The drive to the hotel was blurry through my tear-filled eyes. Sobbing with resentment, I checked into the hotel, feeling lost and betrayed. I woke up in the hotel room feeling like I'd been run over. My head ached from crying, and my eyes were so swollen it hurt to blink. My phone buzzed with a message from Anna, my best friend who worked at a law firm. She had heard about the breakup and was checking in. Meeting Anna at a nearby cafe, I tried to compose myself, but as soon as I saw her concerned face, the dam broke again. "Maria, oh my God, are you okay? What happened?" Anna reached out, her voice full of worry as she grabbed my hands across the table. I shook my head, my voice a whisper. "James, he's with someone else. Told me to get out of our home. And Lily, she's siding with him, Anna." Anna's face hardened. "That's just cruel, Maria. You don't deserve any of this. You need to fight back, and I know just the person who can help." I blinked, taken aback. "A lawyer, you mean?" "Yes, the best divorce lawyer in the city. I've seen him in action, Maria. He's tough, smart, and he doesn't let anyone push his clients around. I'll call him right now if you want." "Do you think I can afford him, though? With everything going on?" Anna waved off my concern. "He's worth every penny, and I'll help you with the costs if it comes to that. No one messes with my best friend and gets away with it." Encouraged by her fierce loyalty, I nodded. "Okay, call him. I want to see James regret what he's done to me and Lily." Anna quickly dialed and spoke briefly with someone on the other end. After she hung up, she smiled. "He can meet us tomorrow. He said to bring anything that might help your case." The next day, meeting the lawyer felt like stepping into a new chapter. His office was stark but impressive, and his handshake was firm. Mrs. Richardson, I've been briefed by Anna. I assure you, we're going to sort this out. Now, tell me everything. As I recounted the details, the lawyer took notes, his expression growing more intense. Your husband's actions constitute not only infidelity, but also financial betrayal. We can fight for not only your marital home, but also adequate support for you and your daughter. Thank you, I just want what's fair. For me and my daughter. Of course. Now, about your financial situation, do you know if your husband has been diverting family funds for his affair? I don't know. I've been too shocked to look into it. We'll get on that right away. If he's been using marital assets to fund his lifestyle with this other woman, that strengthens your case considerably. After the meeting, I went straight to the bank to pull up the bank statements the lawyer requested. My heart sank as I scrolled through the numbers. The savings account that I had earmarked for Lily's education and our retirement was nearly empty. Transactions showed payments for jewelry, expensive restaurants, and trips, none of which were for me or Lily. I gasped, the realization hitting me hard. I had been robbed blind. Back at the lawyer's office, I showed him the statements, my hands trembling. Look at this. It's all gone. He spent it all. The lawyer's eyes narrowed as he reviewed the documents. This is outright theft, Maria. We will definitely get this back. He's not going to get away with it. Before the courtroom drama even began, my lawyer tried to ease the tension and the potential fallout by offering to conclude a settlement agreement. He thought it might be best for everyone, especially Lily, to avoid the spectacle of a trial. But James flatly refused. He was convinced he could win in court and wouldn't budge. I had a heart-wrenching meeting with James and Lily right before we were set to appear in court. During this meeting, Lily dropped a bombshell. I want to live with Dad and Helen, not you, Mom. James and Helen laughed, their happiness piercing my heart like a dagger. It was excruciating to hear, but I swallowed the pain and told her. I respect your decision, Lily. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension as I walked in, seeing James sitting confidently with Helen and Lily by his side. My lawyer gave me a reassuring nod as we approached our table, ready to face whatever came our way. Remember, stay calm and stick to the facts, he whispered as we sat down. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. We are here to address the dissolution of marriage between Maria Richardson and James Richardson. Mrs. Richardson has also brought forth claims of financial mismanagement. We will proceed with the opening statements. James's lawyer was the first to speak. Your Honor, we contend that Mrs. Richardson's claims are exaggerated. My client has been a good husband and father, and any financial issues were mutual decisions. We seek a fair division of assets and primary custody of their daughter for Mr. Richardson. His words made my blood boil, but I kept my face neutral. My lawyer stood, his voice clear and commanding. Your Honor, we will demonstrate that Mr. Richardson not only committed adultery but also deliberately misused family funds, significantly harming Mrs. Richardson and their daughter's financial security. We seek the marital home, full custody of their daughter, and appropriate financial restitution. The evidence presentation was grueling. I watched as bank statements, receipts, and photos were displayed, each one a stab at the life I thought I had. James squirmed, his discomfort visible, especially as the receipts from jewelry stores and luxury hotels were shown, none of which were for me or with me. The turning point came when my lawyer presented a series of messages between James and Helen, clearly detailing their affair and his spending on her. The evidence was damning, and even James's lawyer seemed to falter. Mr. Richardson, can you explain these messages? My lawyer asked, his tone cool. James stuttered, his facade crumbling. It was just a fling. It didn't mean anything. I wasn't using family funds for. Your Honor, the bank statements disagree. My lawyer interjected, showing the court the detailed transactions that James couldn't explain away. In his closing statement, my lawyer was resolute. Mrs. Richardson trusted her husband to honor their shared life and responsibilities. Instead, she and her daughter were betrayed. We ask for a ruling that reflects the gravity of Mr. Richardson's actions. James and Helen were silent as the courtroom buzzed around them. The judge nodded, taking in all the information before adjourning the session. The courtroom was packed on the day of the final hearing, the air heavy with anticipation. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, trying to keep my nerves in check. James, Lily, and Helen were on the other side, looking confident and smug. The judge cleared his throat and began reading the decision. In light of the evidence presented, I am awarding the marital home to Mrs. Richardson, along with financial compensation from Mr. Richardson for the misappropriation of family assets. My heart leaped with a mix of relief and victory, but the most crucial part was yet to come. The judge continued. Now, regarding the custody of the minor child, Lily Richardson. James interrupted, standing up with a sneer. Your Honor, my daughter has expressed her desire to live with me and my partner, which means Mrs. Richardson should be paying us child support for her maintenance. There was a murmur in the courtroom. I felt a cold wave of fear, but before I could say anything, Lily stood up. She looked straight at the judge, her voice clear and strong. I've changed my mind. I want to live with my mom. I've realized my dad used the money my mom saved for my education. I was wrong before. My mom is the best. She's smart and modern, and I want to be with her. The courtroom fell silent. James's face dropped, his smug smile wiped away in an instant. Tears of happiness and relief rolled down my cheeks as I listened to Lily's words. The judge nodded, looking impressed by Lily's courage. The court respects the minor's wishes. Custody of Lily Richardson will be granted to Mrs. Richardson. Furthermore, Mr. Richardson will provide child support payments. James slumped back into his seat, defeated. The judge concluded the proceedings, and as we walked out of the courtroom, I pulled Lily into a tight embrace. I love you so much, Lily. I'm so proud of you. As we exited, we saw James and Helen arguing heatedly. Helen's voice was shrill as she berated him. I don't need a loser who's broke. I'm finding someone who can actually provide for me. With that, she stormed off, leaving James standing there, utterly alone and broken. A few months after the dust had settled and our lives began to find a new rhythm, a bit of unexpected news found its way to me. Turns out, James was fired from his job not long after the court's decision. He struggled to find work for a good while, which was something I heard through the grapevine. When he finally did land a job, it was as a handyman. The days of fancy suits and expensive shoes were behind him. With that chapter behind us, life in our new home felt like waking up to a new world. Mom, I was thinking. Lily started, her spoon clinking against her cereal bowl. Why don't we do something big with the atelier? Like, really shake things up? I smiled, sipping my coffee. What do you have in mind? Maybe we could start online classes, teach people how to sew and design. Share what you've taught me. It could be a whole new part of our business, she suggested, her eyes bright with excitement. As we talked, the seeds of our new project took root. We spent the weekend mapping out our ideas, turning the atelier into a buzzing hub of creativity and innovation. The next few months were a whirlwind. We launched our website, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. People from all over signed up for classes, eager to learn from us. The sense of community was palpable, even through the screen. Our lives had settled into a comfortable rhythm, filled with fabric swatches and video tutorials. The atelier was thriving, and so were we. But something was still missing, and I knew exactly what it was. One sunny afternoon, I broached the subject with Lily. How would you feel about moving to a bigger place? Somewhere with more space for both our home and the business? Lily's eyes lit up. Really? Could we? I've been saving up, and with the business doing well, I think it's the perfect time. We could use a fresh start, don't you think? Absolutely, Mom. Let's do it. She agreed without hesitation. So, we began house hunting, eventually finding a charming little house in the suburbs, with plenty of room for both our living quarters and a spacious new atelier. Moving day was a flurry of boxes and laughter, the excitement palpable as we set up our new home. The house quickly filled with new memories, every room echoing with our laughter and dreams. The atelier, now twice the size of our old one, became a local hub for aspiring designers and hobbyists alike. Looking out over our new beginning, I knew we had finally found our place in the world. It wasn't just about surviving, it was about thriving, about making each day count.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.